Please be seated. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning in Kailua at Kailua United Methodist Church. And I know some of you in the congregation, it's almost like being home because I've been to several workshops over the years that I have been in Hawaii. So thank you so much for your hospitality. And I understand Pastor Tim is in Korea that's amazing. So I'm glad I could fill in and be with you this morning. Let us pray. Holy and gracious God, you who have brought us together to worship you, to give our thanks and our praise, open our hearts that we may hear what you say to us today. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, you who are our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, I know the Old Testament lesson was a little long, but that story from the book of Ezekiel needs to be told in its entirety, and I'm sure that at least some of you are familiar with that, and if not with the story itself, with the song that, says the knee bone is connected to the thigh bone connected, all those bones connected together. That's where that song comes from. But as I've worked with this passage a number of times, it's become one of my favorites because it's an old story for sure, one of the oldest in our Bible, that tells about bringing new life to the people who were devastated, people who were sad, people who were depressed, who had given up all hope. And this is to bring hope to those people, the Hebrew people who had lost everything. The book of Ezekiel is divided into 3 parts. The first is a warning to the people from Ezekiel that, yes, things are not okay. Bad things are going to happen. You are going to be conquered if something isn't done. So wake up. And of course, did they wake up? No. And then there are, that's chapter 1 through 24, and then chapter 25 through 32 are what they call oracles against the foreign nations. So trying to explain where the Hebrew people, where the Israelites are in that area that is still undergoing so much unrest. And then finally we get to chapter 33 through 48, which are the oracles of hope. And this was written after 587 when Jerusalem was conquered. The temple was destroyed, and when we see pictures of the wall in Jerusalem, that is all that's left of that temple from 587 BC. It was rebuilt several times, but that's all we have left, and why it's so sacred to the Jewish people today. But most of the people, a few were left, but most of them were forcibly marched then from Jerusalem and the surrounding area, however many they gathered up, all the way to Iraq, to Babylon, which is modern-day Iraq. So this is 2,500 years ago that the enmity between those two groups of people was in full force. So we are not going to get rid of that enmity in one presidential term. It's going to take a long time and a lot of healing and a lot of prayer. But that's the setting of this story in Ezekiel. People who truly had lost everything. And as I think about this, I think about the immigrants today and those people who have had to leave their homes and how devastated they must feel. I don't know what we can do. It's just a terrible, terrible situation. But that's the same situation that Ezekiel is speaking to. They were so devastated that we find in Psalm 137 that they could not sing the songs of Zion. If you're familiar with that, the captors, the people in Iraq said, "Oh, sing your songs. We've heard that they're full of joy." We've heard that there are wonderful songs, and the people said, we can't sing. We've lost everything. How do we sing the songs of Zion that have joy and happiness and hope in them? We can't do it. So they hung up their harps on the trees, and they wept. Now, I know that those weren't real dead bones, that it was speaking to the feeling of having dead bones in those people's bodies. The feeling that you just could not do anything. There was no hope left, and they felt like they were lying in this valley of dry bones. And today, I think that each one of us has at least one dry bone in our body. No matter what it looks from the outside, everybody has something that we deal with. Everybody has something that needs a word of prophecy to bring hope and encouragement. And I see on the back of the church, you all have to turn around, but when you either turn around or when you get up, it says courage and hope. Now, I don't know what that's up there for, but we're talking about hope today. How do we bring hope in a hopeless situation? How does God work with us to bring breath into us when we feel that we have no breath? And it's a word of encouragement, this prophecy. And courage is what encouragement has courage in it. It takes courage to kind of pull ourselves together and get help and find new life in dry bones. Now, I want to share a little bit about myself because I know some of you, but I don't know many of you, and perhaps you would like to know a little bit about me. I came to Hawaii 17 years ago. I was the pastor at Hilo United Methodist Church for 6 years, and then was moved over to Wahiawa United Methodist, and I was there for 8 years. But I was talked into getting married. That's really the best way to put it. I had been divorced, and my former husband was bipolar. We were doing okay, and I thought, oh, this is it. I'm a pastor. That's really all I wanted to do. And I have 2 kids that are now 34 and 31. They're on the mainland, but my daughter came with me, and I just, it was fine. But some of you know Walter Killow. Walter Killow decided that he wanted to take me out, and you're not supposed to date people in the church, so I told him that. I said, okay, I guess I can go out with you, because I thought it was pretty safe. He was over here on Oahu most of the time. I was in Hilo. And I have a friend, because I said, I don't really want anything serious. She said, don't worry, he's a confirmed bachelor, famous last words. So anyway, I did go out, and he was pretty determined. He's a Marine, he's tough, he was determined, and he wore me down. So, okay, after I moved over here, we got married. But it's turned out that he has dementia. And I know some of you are caregivers for people, and Walter had not been married before, had no kids. As I said, mine were on the mainland, and so it was just Walter and me here. So I became a caregiver. And I did really well. I do well taking care of him, but it is certainly not what I expected out of this relationship, nor is it what Walter would have expected. I have a good friend who was married. They're both pastors, and his wife, pastor, had dementia. So we compared notes, and he says, I didn't expect this, but neither did she. So I have to remind myself of that. Walter didn't want this either. But it got worse, and by the time I think it was about 6 years we'd been married, it was really obvious to everybody at the Wahiawa church that he was not doing well and needed a lot of help. And I was getting ready to retire, but part of the decision for that was that I really did need to take care of Walter. And I'm part of that statistic that people give up their job, they retire so that they can take care of their spouse or somebody in their family. And that last year I thought, I don't know if I'm going to make it, because I was working, we did the church, I gave it all I had. It was a wonderful year, but I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to get through it. And I talked to the church. I said, well, what is this teaching us? What is the spiritual lesson for all of us in having Walter here? Because I had to ask myself that as well. My bones were becoming drier every day. It was hard work, and it took a lot out of me. And by the time I retired and moved over to this side of the island, Walter really did need 24/7 care. And gradually, it got more care all the time, needed more care. So I would help him shave. I learned how to do that. I had to help him shower and then get dressed. I helped him with everything in the bathroom. That was a biggie. Oh, I never thought I'd have to do that. And then it was, he loves ice cream. It was when he started not being able to use a spoon to eat ice cream, I thought, oh dear, I'm going to have to feed him too. So it got worse and worse. As far as his dementia, it progressed. I don't want to say worse and worse, that's not a good way, but it was harder as the dementia progressed. I took him to his family's reunion in the summer of 2015 in Colorado, and that was, of course, hard because you have to take care of everything on that trip, it fell to me. And my bones were becoming drier and drier as I became more tired. Came back, and he fell out of bed and broke his arm 5 days after we got back. And I really did not want to face the fact that he might have a broken bone. I really didn't want to call the ambulance. I thought, oh, we can just take care of this. He's just bruised it. But my neighbor came over. He said, you have to call the ambulance. And so we did, took him to Castle, took him home. But they sent this person with dementia home with a sling, which was normal practice, and some medication, and with a number for home care. But it was taking too long, and after 2 days, I thought, I cannot do this. I couldn't get him up to go to the bathroom. It took 2 hours sometimes because he did not want to move. And I thought, I cannot do this. So it took 2 people the next morning to get him into the car. I took him to Tripler. We went to the emergency room. Thank God they kept him, admitted him, and several days later, they found a place in Pearl City Nursing. And he was there for 6 weeks. He has not been home since. And even though he is in a care home now, my bones were getting drier and drier and drier. It's hard work, and there was only the 2 of us. I look at people with a big ohana, with lots of people to help, and I think, oh, I know it's hard, but at least they have help. But it was just me. And so finally, at just a regular checkup, I said, I think I'm depressed. And the doctor said, yeah, I think you're depressed. And so put me on an antidepressant just before Christmas last year. And you know what? It's getting better. And I don't know how prophecy works, but I think it is speaking the truth, being honest with yourself, because that's what Ezekiel did. It's not fortune telling. It is not saying, oh, I think this is going to happen. It's really being honest about what is going on. The situation for Ezekiel was, yes, we've lost everything. We're not in our homeland. But God still wants you to breathe. God still wants you to live. God still has good things in store for you. And that's the word for all of us, no matter what our life situation is. And we need help for that. I have a life coach that helps me make decisions because I don't know. Is this okay? Is what's going on okay? How do you handle this? I needed help. I needed an Ezekiel. And my doctor was an Ezekiel. And it's much better. I'm doing much better. And Walter's doing much better. And so I have room to be thankful, even though it's still hard. And they talk about the long goodbye. Sometimes things are like that. But this happens in every stage of our lives. My daughter was here with me when I first came to Hawaii. She graduated from Hilo High School, and it was such an adjustment that she did not want to go back to the mainland for college. A lot of people from Hawaii go back, young people. or go to the mainland because it's a new experience. It's something that's good for them. But she did not want to leave. She'd been there. She needed to stay here. So she graduated then from Hilo. She graduated from Hilo High School and then Hilo. And then what? We were not smart like some of my friends who had people in the arts. I have a singer, a family whose daughter is a singer. They said, okay, but you take some business courses. And now she has a job, a really good job doing computers, and then she sings also. Well, Grace wanted to do theater, and I said, okay, just be aware of how tough that is. We did not insist that she take something practical. But she decided after she graduated that she needed something practical, so she would do insurance. There was an ad, she answered it, she got her license, but she was young, she didn't have any experience. It was really hard for her. But they moved that company to San Jose, California, and her dad is over there in the Bay Area, so she thought, oh good, because I haven't been with my dad for a while. But she was not doing well selling insurance, and she was spending money going to workshops to learn how to do it. And finally, she had a word of prophecy from a friend. She was at a workshop, and she was having lunch from one of her friends who had been at Hilo, who was working in an insurance office. And so they sat down, and they were talking together, and Grace's friend said, you know what? The insurance business is really hard. It's really cutthroat. And Grace, you're just not cut out for insurance. So sometimes that word of truth, that word of prophecy comes through people who say things that were hard. It was hard for her to hear. But she woke up, and she said, yeah, I'm not doing well. And what she loved was theater, which she majored in. And so after trying things out, gradually getting more work, and she was working at a coffee shop to help, and, long story, but she's supporting herself being a lighting technician for productions in the Bay Area. She's worked for Apple. When they do those Apple rollouts, she is one of the people who helped set up the lighting for that. She's really good at this. She can see what needs to be done just to tweak things so that the products, our iPhones and our iPads, look the best, however they have them set up. She's worked for Google. She's worked for just companies doing workshops. And right now she's working for 13 Reasons in Netflix, if you've heard about that. She's doing lighting for that. So, I don't have to pay her car insurance anymore. That's good. But that word of truth was what she needed finally. So, you can't do this. This is not good for you. You got dry bones, and you're never going to be a success at something when your bones are that dry, and it's just not meant for you. So we need to be aware. We need to be aware that God speaks to us in many different ways, that Ezekiel comes in different ways for us in our lives. And again, that prophecy is not fortune-telling, it's speaking that word of truth to us, and to be ready for it. And when we're ready, and we have an open heart to listen to what God is saying to us right where we are, whatever situation we have, no matter how hard it is, things get better with the help that's around us. One of the things I had to let go of was I can't do it by myself. I really can't do this by myself. I need help because I'm used to being resilient and strong and making decisions, and as a pastor I've helped lots of people through lots of difficult situations, but when you're dealing with it yourself, it's more than just an intellectual understanding or knowing what to do or being there with a person. You have to deal with it. So God is there for us, breathing life into our dead bones. One of my favorite quotes is, as long as you have breath, no matter what is wrong with you, there is more right with you. Let me say that again. As long as you have breath, no matter what is wrong with you, there is more that's right with you. In other words, if we're breathing, we have a chance. We have our intelligence. We can listen. We can be open. even if it's close to our last breath. Hope does not look the same for everyone. For those ancient people, for many of them, it was going home. But we know that as much as some of them were able to go home, somebody conquered Babylon and they said, okay, you guys go home. We don't want to deal with you over here. And so they went home. But some people stayed. They had made a new life, especially the younger people. And that was hope to them. They did not want to leave their families and their children. Other people did. They went back. So hope was different even then. Hope doesn't look the same for all of us. But there is always hope there. And when we have hope, when we have listened to that prophecy of God being with us, God breathing new life into us, we can become salt and light right where we are. I can help people who are caregivers. I can help them get help. I can say, yeah, it's hard, but God's love renews us each day and breathes life into us each day. And we become help for other people. And we can give encouragement, that courage to live, to have joy. I still take Walter to church, and he loves it. A big day is going out for ice cream. It's so simple. My life coach, my prophet, says, don't make it too hard. Don't make it too complicated. He can't do it anymore. So we listen to those people who can help us. And we open our hearts to God's love and prayer and our friends here in Kailua. And there is joy. There is new hope. There is courage every day, all day. Amen.